beat reporter Nick Farabaugh, and I'm John Luciew. And once again, it is 4 p.m. Tuesday, and we're live on YouTube as we are at this time every week. Nick is coming fresh from another round of OTAs. Amid all this, there's reportedly talk about the Steelers still shopping for wide receivers, even though the second-year wideout, who we really didn't see at all last year, Roman Wilson, apparently had another great day in OTAs. We'll get Nick's take soon. Also, the whole Watt story continues. There's a new wrinkle coming from the Post-Gazette saying that one of the issues with progress on the Watt contract and what TJ wants in this deal is the DK Metcalf deal. As you'll remember, that was a trade, but then the Steelers showered a really big contract with lots of guaranteed money on the now the number one wideout in Pittsburgh. Of course, with mandatory minicamp looming, the Aaron Rodgers watch continues, and there's even some controversy from the unlikeliest sources, that being current QB1 Mason Rudolph. But we're going to get to all of that and much more. But first, Nick, I caught some social media banter last week, and I have to bring this up and get your take on it. I think it was something where people were looking at the best Steelers players' nicknames over the years. And, there are some iconic ones. Mean Joe Green, the Blonde Bomber, Iron Mike, no, not Ditka, Mike Webster, Kiesel the Diesel, Debo, Big Ben, and the Bus. But then you mentioned something that someone gave you sort of a nickname or made a comparison to a celebrity, Hurley on Lost. Yeah. And, Lost is a great show, and it's even doing better now in streaming. But I didn't see it. You didn't see it. How did that come up? Was that one of the players in OTAs, or was that one of your social media followers, or how did that come up?
It was someone on social media DM'd me. He said he thought he looked like it. He thought I looked like that. And then even on the YouTube today, we got that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, geez. Okay. Well, it must be getting, I do know. I want to do a rewatch of Lost because I watched it in real time when it was on, weekly TV back in the old days. Once a week you'd watch an episode and you'd be waiting for the next one. Now everything, you can stream it all at once. And I got to go back and watch that. But, that was a little, out of left field, but who knows, what, how we're compared or judged or whatever else. But speaking of judged, the latest rumor out there, Jonnu Smith, what's Jonnu?
Tight end, yeah.
Yeah, the tight end. There was rumors there. That seems to have faded. Now the latest player being linked to the Steelers, and apparently, he's coming in for an interview, Gabe Davis. Another kind of, his stats are a little meh, not much from last year. 239 yards, couple of touchdowns, 5.7 yards per target, 2 yards per catch per reception, and his Pro Football Focus grade was 52.5, ranking him 127th out of 133 wideouts that were rated. What do you think? Get him for the vet minimum. Is he worth it? Especially with, you got Calvin Austin, you got Roman Wilson really opening eyes. I mean, these are some lackluster names, at least from my perspective. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Gabe Davis, I've never been a huge fan of. He had some decent years with Buffalo last year. As you mentioned, 239 yards in 10 games, really 9. Missed most of the 10th game, suffered a torn meniscus, and that was that. He had a really good year in 2022 and 2023. He had both of those years over 700 receiving yards as kind of that compliment to Stephon Diggs. Playing with Josh Allen will help that, of course. He's a deep threat. He's a big-bodied blocker. Doesn't really separate that well. Not a crisp route runner. He's kind of this theme of this big-bodied outside receiver that can block. The Steelers have looked to kind of mold, and then that's the thing. And the other thing that's concerning with Davis to me is the injuries. He's had some injuries, and this specific injury seems to be an issue because he has failed. He was released with a failed physical designation by the Jacksonville Jaguars, seemingly late after the draft. Seemingly, what you would think is their plan was to potentially keep him. He was in the going into the second year of a big 3-year deal. He signed with them. Granted, it's a new regime, so they're looking to kind of repurpose that. But he also visited the Giants and the 49ers, and they haven't signed him. So certainly I think the Steelers that's going to be one key answer that they need here is where's Gabe Davis at in terms of the knee. So we'll figure that out kind of very quickly. I think if he's healthy, this might come together quickly. They've been looking for wide receiver help. We know that. Gabe Davis, though, I mean, does he really move the needle a ton? I mean, is he better than the other options they have? Probably. Is he some game-changing player for them? I don't think so. But is what it is. There's not a lot of great options here left on the table. I mean, Amari Cooper didn't have a great year last year in that Buffalo offense. Keenan Allen had a decent year, but he's a slot main player, and the Steelers obviously have Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin, who are slot main players. It's a tough kind of needle thread when you're the Steelers, I think, and you're looking at that. And so we'll kind of see. Gabe Davis, to me, though, is just I've never been a huge Gabe Davis fan. Even when he went off, I understand the stats are there. You know, a lot of product of environment there to me in terms of what he brought to the table. Now, he's a high character guy. He can block. And he will make some deep plays down the field, which do fit what the Steelers do well. But I would like them to add a separator more than, a route runner type. I think that's always a cool thing. When you look at the best receiving cores in the NFL, you generally have different kind of archetypes. I think of the Eagles, for example, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, very different types of players. Or if you do have the two of the same types, it's generally those route runners. The Steelers have a big body deep threat in DK right now, obviously. They don't really have a true route runner. Could Roman Wilson or Calvin Austin be that? Maybe. But I think they need less of a big body blocker because I think they have that. His name's Robert Woods. And I think Gabe Davis, while he could add that, not necessarily sure they need that. I think I would personally, try to scour the market, but we'll see. Gabe Davis probably wouldn't cost too much either, so he could add something there. But I've never been a huge fan of Gabe Davis's game, even dating back to his game at UCF. I never was really a fan of him as a prospect. But he's obviously been fine as a player because he had 500 receiving yards in every season before this year. And he would have if he had stayed healthy this year. But he wasn't worth the contract the Jaguars were paying him. But it'd be kind of just meh, right? Mm-hmm. It's nothing that you're like, yep, that's the solution. I just don't see it.
Speaking of the current receivers on the Steelers roster, I know you had a real positive tweet, and I saw some video coming, with Roman Wilson getting some work and looking pretty smooth in some of his cuts and routes and stuff. I mean, what archetype do you see him developing into, and is he going to really move the needle this year in his second year in that offense?
I think that's the question. And listen, he's had a really strong start to OTAs. That's what I think has been really, really good. He's like the big question, right? Like, you don't know what you got in him. And coming out of Michigan, I always thought he was that horizontal field stretcher we've talked about. His explosiveness is just really good. I think he looks like a better route runner. I do think that is something that's been kind of sticking out to me. He looks sharper. And so for me, when I look at Roman Wilson, the biggest thing to make him a viable outside receiver in addition to a slot receiver is how's he going to deal with the route running part of this aspect? Because it was raw at Michigan. He was able to win with speed. He's able to be physical at the top of routes, and that's part of why he was able to separate on drags and overs and different routes like that. But I do think the route running looks a little sharper. And today he had a really nice play from the outside. He was playing outside, caught a ball, a fade route, beat him down the field, stacked them, and ball was a little underthrown. He came back to it and mossed the guy and ran for a touchdown. It was a pretty good play by Roman Wilson. But he's had that type of play all the time, it seems like so far. He's been able to kind of get open. He's been able to make chain moving catches. It's just been one after the other. Like he's the most high volume target player right now at camp, and it's because he's open. And I think that's positive, right? You want to see that. And so it's 4 days. They only have helmets on. They don't have pads on. Doesn't mean that much, but good signs are at least that he's starting to look here. This is how he looked at training camp last year before he got hurt. And I think that's the positive sign. And so, you're kind of building things up here with Roman Wilson, but he looks really good. And I think that's at least a good start if you're hoping that he can be an answer here in this room.
Excellent. And, last year, we remember he got hurt, and then Tomlin basically said the train left the station, and he never really was a factor throughout the whole season. I mean, he just got hurt, got behind, and the train left the station. Hey, because we ask for questions from the viewers, the live viewers, we're going to take one, even though it's kind of out of order or, wasn't on the next thing on the agenda, but we're going to go right to a viewer question who's inquiring about Joey Porter Jr. And we did hear some commentary from Joey that he has been looking at his film from last year when we know he had some crazy penalties that probably shouldn't have happened. He wasn't trusting in himself and would kind of grab people right at the end. So the viewer wants to know, how's he looking? How's he going to clean this stuff up? Kind of these panic moves right at the end, instead of making a play, making sort of kind of a bonehead grab or something, on the receiver.
Yeah, I mean, he said last week he didn't think it was drastic. He thought it was small things that added up. And I think that's probably about right. I mean, trust in your feet is, I think, a big thing, but it's the reasons why he doesn't trust his feet that are probably small. Little things he's thinking about, intricate things, hand placement. Is he stepping with the right foot to kind of keep mirror and phase? All these things are really important to having really good man coverage reps. Man coverage is hard. Corner's a really hard position to play. Joey has really unique traits at corner, obviously, with his length. And he's a guy, I think, that has improved in other areas, right? The tackling has definitely gotten better since his rookie year. The zone coverage instincts and the eyes in zone coverage have gotten way better. I think Joey's shown it improvement in areas of his game where it's hard to improve. This is going to be the big part, though. And here's the thing, John. 17 penalties last year were called against Joey Porter Jr., by far the most out of any defensive player in football. 14 of them came in 4 games. 14 penalties in 4 games, 3 in the other 13 that he played. Well, I guess he missed one, so it would be 12. But he really racked them up against big physical receivers. I think that was the one thing. T. Higgins alone got called for 10 penalties when he covered T. Higgins. So boogeyman T. Higgins, I mean, I don't blame anyone. T. Higgins is a very good player, but that can't be happening against one guy. But other players that kind of gave him a little bit of trouble. Cortland Sutton gave him some trouble, bigger receiver. And then on top of that, it was Terry McLaurin. While McLaurin's not a big receiver like Sutton and Higgins, he is a player that is physical and plays bigger than he is. And so that is kind of the archetype to getting him called for penalties. He'll hold. He loses it at the catch point. And that's the big thing with Joey is against bigger physical receivers, which should be his ace point because he's this big physical corner. How do you deal with that? The quicker guys, he seems like he actually doesn't grab. And you would be scared more about grabbing with the bigger, kind of the smaller, quicker guys. You would think, right, the Jamar Chases of the world. No, that doesn't happen with Joey. In fact, his reps against Jamar Chase last year when they went up against each other were pretty darn good. And that was really odd to me just to watch kind of Joey against bigger physical corners. I mean, bigger physical wide receivers, rather. Just kind of grab and panic. And I just don't want to see him do that anymore because Joey really has to kind of focus and lock in. It's a consistency thing with him. And so if he can lock in on those small things and trust his technique against those bigger guys, that'll be big because he's got a lot of big physical receivers. I mean, listen, there's going to be a big test in week 4. That's all I'm going to say. Justin Jefferson is going to be a big test. Justin Jefferson, while he is a great route runner, he's also a bigger player that can play physical if you want. He can play bully ball. Justin Jefferson can do just about a little bit of everything. And so that one's going to be the hard one too. So let's see how that kind of comes out.
And we just know that Justin would love nothing more than to dance an Irish jig in the end zone in Ireland to celebrate, some touchdowns over Porter and over Pittsburgh, ruining the Steelers. This is really a home game for the Steelers, the debut of the NFL in Ireland for the regular season. So that will be fun to watch, hopefully fun to watch and not painful for Porter, who, when I read his comments or listened to his comments, it was almost like he was having an out-of-body experience. He was watching his tape. He was watching him make these grabs at the catch point, as you said, and kind of almost like not understanding why he did it himself. It was, it was kind of like him analyzing, well, there's not that much to fix, but, panic is a hard thing to fix. If it is a panic move, that's a hard thing to fix. It is discipline and it's confidence and it's belief.
Yeah, I think we talk about quarterback and kicker as like ultimate mental positions.
Yeah,
kicker being the biggest one, just because it is so much about mental side than physical. But guys, the corner position is super, super in tune with the mental side too. If you don't trust your technique, everything just falls off the rails. I mean, you got to be honest about yourself when you're talking about being a cornerback, especially in the Steelers scheme. When they play as much man coverage as they do, you are on an island, and you are the only man stopping that guy from getting the football. If you don't trust yourself, you're going to grab, you're going to hold, you're going to yank, you're going to do all those things. You're going to, even if you're in good position, and Joey's in really good position on a lot of these penalties he's at,
right.
He just grabs, he panics at the catch point, he commits DPI, he commits illegal contact for no reason. Like, he just is in a headspace sometimes where I think it snowballs for him because he gets these penalties in bunches, which I think does imply, John, that it is mental.
Yes.
Because when one happens, when two happen, he just goes off the rails. It's got to be something about how he locks in there. So that's the biggest thing for Joey. Even if he doesn't fix it, I think he's still a good corner too. But I think if he does fix it, we're talking about a guy that can be, one of the better corners in football. So we've seen it, right? We saw his rookie year how good he was. He shut down everybody he faced in his rookie. And then last year, when he did lock in, he was really good. I mean, there were stretches last year where he was incredible, but it just was so up and down. And so let's see if he can get back to who he was. And corner is such a volatile position that we see guys have bad years, have really good years. We'll see.
Right. But I do agree with you that this is something we're not going to know is fixed until we get into the regular season and he goes up against the big physical guys that he has had problems with, the T. Higgins types. The 10 penalties against T. Higgins is just a mind-blowing stat. But we're not going to know till we get into those, one-on-one matchups in the regular season. Now, here we are. Speaking of the regular season, we're in the second week of OTAs, and I'm already sick of the TJ Watt contract story, and I'm really sick of JJ Watt going on every TV camera that he can get his mug on, trying to negotiate this deal, in the media, and there's a guy on X called Penguins Jesus, and he said, every single time JJ Watt opens his mouth, I like TJ just a little bit less. So that's, and I say amen to Penguins Jesus, in this contact situation. And apparently, one of the other wrinkles that is wrinkling Watt's negotiations is this $150 million deal, $60 million guaranteed that DK Metcalf got, and of course we all know that Myles Garrett, the 4 years, $160 million, $124 million guaranteed. That's the standard, and apparently there are now 4 edge rushers in the NFL who have exceeded what at the time was Watt's sort of record-setting deal when he signed this contract that he's now in the last year of, as he turns 31 in October. So, I just know we're going to be hearing this story a lot, and there's probably not a lot new. Apparently, there's an offer on the table. But anything you can add, Nick, and in terms of, is this going down to the last day of before the last day of the preseason? When you sign on the dotted line, and then get in your your uniform for the regular season.
I mean, it's possible. Let's see how serious it gets next week. Mandatory minicamp is next week. If he's not there, we're talking holdout, guys. I mean, that's that at that point. Last time it was a hold in. He was there for mandatory minicamp,
right?
And he just worked off to the side. If we get hold out, that's when things can get sometimes a little hairy. I mean, he's not going to do what Ayuk did last year, which is the ultimate hold in tactic I've ever seen. Annoy the absolute crap out of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch every chance you see them to get them to cave. And they didn't, and then he signed anyways. But regardless, I don't see TJ doing that. I do think this is probably going to take a while. I mean, it probably will. The Steelers generally do take a long time with these deals. And it does kind of make you ask the question of when it will get done. And the most likely answer is probably like 5 days before the regular season. I mean, it probably is that answer. They did that with Cam last year. They did it with Freiermuth last year. They've done it before. Now, they've gotten some done early. Highsmith was a really easy one. Minka was really easy. Deontay Johnson's first contract was pretty easy. That happened early in training camp, that one. And those are all con deals, so something to note. But, I mean, Freiermuth and Hayward took all last year. And I thought Pat Freiermuth was going to be done far more. The Steelers were pretty stringent about their kind of handling of that situation, and then kind of caved later, where they really started to kind of demand a little more. And so I do think this is probably going to take a while because it's a big time contract. We're not talking about even Freiermuth's deal, which is, just a little bit over 12 per year. We're going to talk about a $40 million per edge rusher. Like, that's a large deal, and it's probably going to hit $40 million. Here's the thing, though. The Steelers have been talking to TJ since the combine. Like, I heard this back at the combine. I reported that. They were talking with TJ Watt at the combine about his contract. At the very least, they were letting him know that, hey, we're going to start this soon. And so they've been talking for a while. There's an offer on the table. I don't think it's near $40 million. I do think it's probably more in the territory of the Max Crosby deal. So I don't think they're that far off. I mean, Crosby got 35 and a half. The Steelers are not that far off, but I think the Steelers could have gotten that discount had they paid TJ earlier in the offseason, had they paid him even last year, like JJ does say. Like, TJ's not taking a hometown discount. Part of that might be the Myles Garrett stuff. I don't know. We know that that's a thing I think he's motivated by. Part of that is, I think, the fact that, hey, business is business. This is TJ's probably last contract in the NFL, more than likely, or at least second to last, if not. And certainly his last one at that point probably is not going to be very rich, because how good are 34, 35-year-old edge rushers? And so he's going to want every penny out of this. And the guaranteed structure is going to be really important too. Myles Garrett threw this thing all off the rails. $40 million per year genuinely stunned people, I think. And for TJ, it went back to the drawing board. TJ, if they had gotten TJ done before Myles Garrett and the Max Crosby deal was there, they probably could have signed TJ for 36, 37 a year, and I think they would have done that rather easily. $40 million per year, though, it's a big one. But they have to be ready, because here's the thing, John. Aiden Hutchinson, going to get paid soon. Micah Parsons, going to get paid soon. Micah Parsons actually just reported to the Dallas Cowboys team today. I don't know if that's a sign that maybe things are going a little bit better there than people are portraying it as, because that one seems real messy right now. But if either of those guys signs, guess what? Then the deal's not $40 million. Then it's 41 or 42. So it gets more expensive. If Trey Hendrickson inks a new deal too, we know his very public one with the Bengals right now. What if that one pops in at 41 per year? Guess what? TJ's then going to want 41 and a half or 42. This only gets more expensive. The Steelers need to get this done, because they're going to cave in. Like, they're going to do it. And so get it done before those guys get it done, so you don't have to worry about it. Make the Cowboys pay Micah Parsons $45 million per year. Not you. That's the big thing, because the more it goes down that path, the more TJ's going to want. It's the fact of the matter. It is what it is. It's the market.
And I totally understand the comparisons, but these are younger guys coming off their rookie deals, looking to cash in big for the first time, like Watt did back in, when he inked his, 5 years, 112, whatever it was, the record-setting deal that he inked. And now he's in the last year. Now, here's an alternative take, and I know it's not going to happen, but, this is the hardball take of what Mark Madden, the agent provocateur on the radio out in Pittsburgh, thinks how he would handle Watt. He has 1 year left on his deal. Make him play it out. If he plays well, franchise him in 2026. Repeat if warranted in 2027. Go year by year. The only reason to acquiesce and give Watt what he wants is to keep him from whining and to shut up his brother JJ, who's using the media platform to campaign for his brother's payday. Sure, TJ could refuse to play, but he'd have to be available for 6 games to burn the final year of his current contract, and then the Steelers could franchise him anyway, unquote. Now, that's the hardball approach, but
why would you do that, though? Why wouldn't you just trade him at that point? That's what I don't understand that thought. Why would you hardball him into missing games if that's what he's willing to do, rather than trade him? I don't understand that. If you're done with TJ and you might even think about moving him, just trade him at that point. That's honest to God where I would be. They're not anywhere closer there, by the way. They are going to extend TJ Watt. This is not a question. There are no discussions going on South Water Street of if this team should keep TJ Watt. They're going to keep TJ Watt. They're just playing hardball. And the Steelers like to do this so they can get little wins on the margins, and they're probably arguing over guaranteed structure, probably because there's more risk in this deal than there is in other deals that they're going to do of this stature. Cam Hayward, they quibbled with all last year because he's a 35-year-old defensive lineman. Granted, he put in an all-pro season. How many 36-year-olds are putting in all-pro seasons? That deal is looking like a steal, but still, even with now, Cam is only getting older. Cam could fall off at any point, even though he's an ageless wonder. Right. With TJ, he's going to be 31, as you mentioned, right? Mm-hmm. This guy is not a spring chicken anymore. He's at the tail end of his prime. The burst is going to start to fall off sooner rather than later, and he's a speed rusher. I say this again. He's not like Cam. Cam's a power rusher. He is a speed rusher. TJ's going to have to reinvent himself to stay elite as he gets older into this deal. And so, not that you have any questions about the work ethic of TJ Watt. You certainly don't. But there's risk involved in this deal. And so the Steelers are going to try and hardball this as much as they can. But they can't do it too long, because if one of those deals gets inked, they are in even more trouble with how much more money they might have to give out, or the guaranteed structure getting even more lucrative. So get it done while you can. You already waited too long. They already waited too long. They should have done it back in March before Myles Garrett got his deal. But if you're going to do it now. That's what you got to look at.
No, I wholeheartedly agree, and I agree with you that strategy of sort of, letting him sit out and then that is definitely, if you're burning the guy, or you just totally negotiations have blown up. But they did do something similar to that with Le'Veon Bell, and he's
a running back.
But he's a running back. Well, that's
right.
True. Yeah, that's a different position.
He's a running back, and the Steelers. Yeah. Not only is he a running back, he was getting offered $15 million per year, which is a lot of money for a running back at that time. It was a lot of money. He just wanted to really, take the market to another level. So it's not like the Steelers weren't offering a solid contract.
I agree.
Were. But we're not talking about a running back here. We're talking about one of the best edge rushers in football, man. He is the lifeblood of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Sure.
He is. Sure. Without him, if you want them to tank, and I'll tell you what, if you want the Steelers to tank, let TJ Watt walk out that door. They might just do it. Not on their own, but They might be dragged kicking and screaming into that void if that happened. But it's okay. It's not going to happen because TJ Watt's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler until the day he retires. I am fairly certain about that. They are just going to have to pay up. They're going to have to pay the money, and they're going to have to pay the guaranteed structure. And the deal very well could age badly. We'll see. But they're going to pay him, and they're going to bring him back because all they've known the past, 4 or 5 years is TJ Watt making that play in the regular season as they claw to 10-7.
Right. No, I totally agree. That's the way it's going to play out. I just hope, we're not hearing from JJ ad nauseum right up until the regular season, but we'll see how that plays out. And of course, the other sort of excruciating Steelers saga is the Rodgers, will he or won't he, or simply when will he? Dan Marino, a Pittsburgh-born QB who never did play for the Steelers, who could have been drafted by the Steelers, questions the Rodgers mindset. You got to have someone that really wants to play there, and it just seems like, and again, he just could be waiting because he doesn't want to go through all the training camp and everything, and he wants to enter on his own terms. And there's a rumor going around that if he doesn't show for mandatory minicamp, which there's no sign he will, that eventually he's going to invite some Steelers receivers out his way to sort of get some practice in and get some work in on his terms. But just anything new on this saga, or is there any chance at all he'd be at mandatory minicamp?
Sure, there's a chance he'll be there. I mean, it makes sense for him to sign like this time next week, probably Monday, maybe next week. I mean, that makes sense for him to sign. Here's the thing with the Steelers, man. I mean, they're just operating as Mason and Will Howard and Skylar Thompson right now. I don't think they can do much else. They've kind of given themselves this. They've made their bed and they're lying in it. It is what it is. There's nothing much new on the front. I don't know when he's going to sign for sure. I do find it interesting, and I'm going Galaxy Brain here for a second, guys. I'm admitting that, but here's the interesting thing. DK Metcalf isn't at Steelers OTAs. He was at a lot of Steelers OTAs before the actual phase 3 of OTAs. He's based in Southern California. Who else is based in Southern California? I just wonder if maybe DK and Aaron Rodgers are throwing over in Los Angeles right now. And we saw them do it once already, obviously. That was public because DK's videographer was there. But now there's no one there necessarily. I do wonder if DK and Aaron Rodgers are getting workouts together on the West Coast, and that's what's coming here. I kind of think it's an interesting coincidence that Metcalf isn't here. I do find that to be interesting. And maybe then, I would then think, Rodgers would obviously organize whatever needed to be done. But that's just my Galaxy Brain theory for the day. That I do still think Aaron Rodgers becomes the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers this season. But we'll see when it happens. I have no idea.
Now, under your thought, with the DK Metcalf connection and, maybe they're getting some work done on the sly and, everything's being social media silent on that end. Under your scenario, do they make their grand entrance at mandatory minicamp together? Do you think would just Metcalf show up having worked secretly with Rodgers, and Rodgers would come in at a later date, feeling good that he had some reps with Metcalf, and maybe have some of the other receivers out after mandatory minicamp before training camp? Is there any? Well, how do you think it plays out? Do they come in together at mandatory minicamp, or is it just DK showing up and maybe hinting about Rodgers, or once he faces the media?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they came together, but I mean, no question. And here's my thought process behind what I said. If Rodgers was at OTAs, Metcalf would be here. I have no doubt in my mind. DK Metcalf would be at OTAs if Aaron Rodgers was at OTAs. He's not. Doesn't necessarily mean Rodgers is coming for minicamp. DK's obviously coming for minicamp.
Right.
It's obviously something you have to be there. It's not voluntary. It's mandatory minicamp. These are voluntary OTAs. But I do think that Metcalf and Rodgers coming together would make sense. It would, because then you can also build the base work with Calvin Austin, Pat Freiermuth, all those other guys in there. And then you can organize throwing sessions in that June to July window before you go to Latrobe. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm interested to kind of see if it does happen. Either way, we'll talk to DK next week, presumably, and I guess we'll find out some things there. If he did throw with Rodgers, how that session went, et cetera, et cetera. But just my Galaxy Brain theory for the day was that one, and I wouldn't be surprised. I have everything I've heard inside the Steelers organization still think that Rodgers is going to be coming, but obviously Rodgers has not outright texted Mike Tomlin that he is coming, so they don't know it for sure yet.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, and as we know, just based on the Steelers schedule and the primetime games that they got, and based on this is people betting with their wallets, since that schedule has come out, the Sunday night Green Bay game in Pittsburgh is like one of the top 5 priced tickets on the secondary market because everybody thinks Rodgers is going to be the quarterback and he'll be going against the team that drafted him and the team he won a Super Bowl with and the team he beat the Steelers in the Super Bowl with, that's going to be one of the top tickets of the entire season because of Rodgers. And the media, as soon as he does sign, I mean, you're going to be looking at a media circus. And I mean, it's going to be, for you beat guys that, that follow the team day in and day out, I think there's going to be a lot of out-of-towners coming in, I think, to Pittsburgh to cover the Rodgers circuit. And we just know how outspoken he is and how, he just commands, whether you love him or hate him, he commands an audience, just like Howard Stern, the movie, they always said, well, half the audience hates you, but they actually watch longer because they want to see what you're going to say next. And people want to see what Rodgers is going to say and do next, whether you like him or not. So it's going to be just the level of interest in the 2025 season with Rodgers just goes up. And we already see that from the schedule and the ticket price for the Green Bay game, that the interest, and everybody believes Rodgers is going to be in black and gold. It is what it is. Yeah.
It is what it is. And I mean, there's going to be media interest. He's a media magnet. He's Aaron Rodgers. It is what it is. So we'll see. The Steelers had a lot of people come in from out of town around this time last year for Fields and Wilson. So it would be nothing new to the beat.
Okay.
But Aaron Rodgers is just such a superstar, of course. It
Right.
would be. But hey, we'll see what ends up happening. The Steelers this year, man, are going to be an interesting team, just like they were last year. So much new blood on offense again.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I'll tell you, we will definitely be picking your brain on the podcast just to get some anecdotes. If this does become a Rodgers media circus, because I'm sure Wilson and Fields were names, but I just think it's Rodgers is on another level. So it'll be interesting to get your take on the ancillary media, that he may attract like moths to a flame. Speaking of attracting some publicity, for better or worse, we got great reviews on Mason Rudolph being sort of the veteran helping out the rookie Will Howard in the early days of OTAs. He's being credited for being very generous and gushing praise from Howard in terms of the way Mason Rudolph is handling him and helping him. But then there was sort of a backlash because Mason appeared on stage amid assembly of steelworkers in Pittsburgh as President Trump came to sort of take a victory lap on keeping U.S. steel in Pittsburgh. And, apparently some season ticket holders, weren't happy and they wrote in their sentiments. And the Steelers actually sent something back saying, well, hey, players can do whatever they want to do on their own time, and they have their own opinions. It's not the opinion of the team, So a little bit of flap there. How big of a deal is that? And what was there any lingering discussion of that? When Mason spoke to the media, if he did speak to the media since then.
Yeah, he and Killebrew both spoke today. Both of them were there. Mason Rudolph basically said the social media. Everyone has an opinion. Whoop-de-doo.
Right.
he said he wanted to see a steel mill for the first time, which I thought was funny. I don't buy that. If it's whatever. If you support the president, just admit it. I don't really understand playing coy about it. Miles Killebrew basically did the same thing, except he said, I wanted to beat the president so bad when I was a kid, but I'm not going to be apologetic about it. I'm not going to be – I think he said, frankly, I think the quote – let me read the quote to you because it is pretty – I mean, Miles Killebrew got pretty fired up about this.
Yeah.
He said, here's the deal. I remember what it was like being a kid and one of my friends – and I growing up, we either wanted to be the president or have a chance to meet him one day. And yesterday I got to meet the president. I'm not apologetic about that. For anyone who thinks that's a bad thing, to be honest, I couldn't care less. I was there signing. I wasn't there signing legislation. I was there meeting the president and glad I did it. I mean, again, they're pretty unapologetic about it. The Steelers are sending a statement out saying that when people are mad. I don't have confirmation if they did that when other players have supported the other party or whatever. It doesn't really matter. I don't think anyone in the locker room thought about it today. I don't think anyone brought it up. I don't think anyone's like piercing at Mason or Miles Killebrew because of this in the locker room. So in terms of the on-field storyline that this is, there is nothing to that. In terms of whatever your feelings may be about it, feel free to shoot off, I guess.
Well, I will tell you this. I am a season ticket holder, and I did not get a response from the Steelers, their reaction to this because I didn't complain. Apparently, they only sent it to the people who complained about it. That's according to the Post-Gazette and Dulac, who apparently one of those season ticket holders who did complain shared the email. But it wasn't a blanket to every season ticket holder. Yes. It was only the ones who took the time to send a nasty gram the Steelers' way and make an issue of it. But, I'm with you. We don't do politics on this show. I don't like when politics is mixed with sports. But these are individuals who are, like any of us who are free to do things in their own time, independent of the employer's belief. You know what I mean? It's America. It's freedom. And yeah, I agree. I have to agree with that sentiment. Really, meeting the president isn't a bad thing, regardless of party or anything. How can that be a bad thing? Because it used to be, hey, it's the president. If he does well, the whole country does well and everybody does well. So, whoever it is, you wish them the best. I guess that was my belief. Once the election is over, wish everybody the best so that the country does well and everybody in the country does well. That used to be the sentiment. So I kind of like the way Killebrew handled it. I kind of like the way he handled it. He was just not backing down, and meeting the president is not a bad thing. And it's kind of a sorry state when a lot of the country thinks it is a bad thing. I mean, or half the country or whatever the dividing line is. But anyway, enough on that subject. It's just one of those wrinkles where even before Rodgers gets here, who would have thought we'd have a quarterback stirring some controversy? You know what I mean? And of all people, Mason Rudolph.
Hey, man, if you want some Rodgers political content, there's 3 hours of it on Joe Rogan.
Well,
exactly. You can get your feed of it, trust me.
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking of getting our fill, I'm planning to make the pilgrimage to Pittsburgh. It'll be my pleasure for next Tuesday, mandatory minicamp. So I think that will set up a live version of the podcast next Tuesday at 4, where we'll both be in the same area code and 412, talk about what we see, as it becomes mandatory, the practice next Tuesday. So that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it, and invite everybody to come watch us live, as we'll be in the same place at the same time and really can, go back and forth. So that'll be fun. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. I mean, that'll be fun. One last thing, just on the Rudolph thing. I got this comment on my social media. I think it's fair to point this out, that a lot of people are pointing out the Rocky Bleier involvement in this, and the fact that they literally gave Trump the shirt and the 47 and all that, Killebrew and Rudolph appearing there. that actually wasn't the crux of the issue with a lot of people. It was the Rocky Bleier part of that. So I think that's a fair point to point out. But yeah, we will be there next week. John will be at mandatory minicamp. We will be talking about basically everything we can, and that will have everybody there. So there are a few players not there: TJ, DK Metcalf, Juan Thornhill, Cordero Patterson. There's a few of them that weren't there today, that were there last week. They will all be there tomorrow on Tuesday, and maybe John, maybe you'll even be there for the first day of Aaron Rodgers.
Oh my God!
And we see a unicorn in Pittsburgh. Awesome.
That would be amazing. Hey, just to give a little context to maybe our younger viewers who don't realize it, 47 is the number of Hall of Famer Mel Blount. So it's also the number of Trump's presidency. He's the 47th president. So that's why that 47 was controversial. And you'll notice a lot of times when there's a visit to the White House, and they present him a jersey, it's just the number 1 that's on there, not 47. So that's why, I can see why that was a little touchy. The 47 number, giving that to the president, that I could see where, especially some older fans who know the history of that number, why that would wrinkle some people the wrong way. So fair point on all sides. And with that, we'll close it up, and we'll look forward to next Tuesday in Pittsburgh from the 412, and maybe who will also be in the building. And no, it's not Elvis. Go Steelers.